Hey everybody, Amy here with Garden Up, and today I'm going to talk about reduced pruning, a Oregon grape. This big, gorgeous, blooming shrub behind me is just getting a little bit too big for its space, and I laugh at myself for calling it gorgeous because when it's not blooming, I hate them. They're awful plants. The leaves are very sharp and pokey. Each one of these leaves has several really sharp bits. You see those sharp spines on the side of those leaves, and when the leaves fall off in the fall and dry, the spines get even sharper. And if you're not wearing your gloves, they will get you. Even if you are wearing your gloves, they will get you. So cleaning up after this plant is a real chore, and it's not a fun thing. It's not a plant I really like. They also do tend to spread in the garden. They'll send out rhizomes and shoot up little babies all over the place. Their roots go down to China, so it's hard to get them out once they're in there and established. They're not fun. So this monstrosity, I'm not going to try to dig up, even though I don't really like it, but I'd be fighting a losing battle on that one. Instead, I just want to make it smaller. It's taking up about 1/4 of my yard, and I just don't need it this big anymore. So I'm gonna let it be for right now, because I don't know if you can hear it, but the bees are absolutely loving these flowers. So I'm gonna let the bees have it, and then as soon as it's done blooming, then I'm gonna go ahead and prune. So here we are. It is now time to prune this Oregon grape behind me. It has set berry, okay? It's got berries all over it. It's beautiful. Oregon grape berries are very, very, very healthy. They're great for your body, but I'll tell you, they are sour. But I do have a friend who's an herbalist who loves to make things out of Oregon grape berries, so I'm gonna harvest the berries and then I'm gonna prune the grape. Tools I'm gonna need, I have quite a variety of tools down here. First I have a tarp for all of my debris, and then I have quite a few different loppers and saws of different sizes. So I've got my little loppers for easy stuff, you know, and then I've got these ones for bigger things. These are probably my favorite loppers, Corona brand. These are fabulous. As always, links to all these tools down in the description below. And then these ones, these are really cool. These actually have a gear right here that gives you more leverage with less effort. And so these are really cool. This is Fisker's brand, which is not my favorite brand of tools, but I have not found these anywhere else yet. And they need to be sharpened. My goodness, I need to sharpen these bad. Right there. This is one reason I don't love Fiskars, is because how easily they bend and lose their edge. But the gear still works, so it's still a good sharp tool for what I need. And then I also have a couple of saws. I don't think I'll need this one. This is my big pruning saw. This is for like big logs and big boughs and stuff. I don't think we'll need to get that big. This is probably the biggest saw we'll need right here. This is a 10-inch Corona brand pruning saw. Oh, and also, of course, my trusty hand pruners. So first I'm going to start harvesting the berries. So I've harvested quite a few of the berries. The rest of them I'm just going to harvest as I start pruning, so I want to get into this. It's turning out to be much less efficient to pre-harvest the berries than it is to just start cutting. So whenever you're pruning a woody shrub, what you're looking for is a joint between a primary stem and a secondary stem. That joint right there is called a crotch. It'll always have two parts, a branch bark ridge, which will grow right between the two, and a branch bark collar that grows around the secondary branch. Okay, so here's a joint. The ridge is right here between where the two meet, and the collar is where the bark changes a little bit. See, it's a little bit darker and a little bit wider ridges right here, and then there's this line where suddenly the texture changes and it gets a little bit finer right here. The ridges aren't quite as deep and it's just a little bit finer texture. So whenever you make a cut, you're going to cut to this point. You're either going to cut right on the collar, or that's a proper pruning cut, or you're going to do what's called heading back, where you take the main branch and you cut it to this point, and you're going to cut it at an angle kind of this way, kind of parallel with the secondary branch in that direction. Leave about 1/2 inch of space between the joint and where you cut. Okay, that's called heading back. And what we're going to do today with reducing the size of this Oregon grape is a whole lot of heading back. So I'm going to be finding joints where it's got a long primary stem and then it comes down to some lateral secondary stems, and I'm going to cut it at those secondary stems so that I can get the height and the width of this plant down and under control a little bit so that I can, you know, walk around it to mow behind it and whatnot. So that is my plan. So without further ado, let's get started. I did decide to wear gloves because this is an incredibly pokey plant. It's not been fun thus far to deal with it, and I'm not even going to mess with these because you won't like. So I am just going to pick a branch that I want to reduce the size of, and I'm going to find a good place to cut it. My cutting blade is on the side of the plant that I want to keep. So part of the bypass pruners that's crushing is the side that's on what I'm cutting off. Just like that. Okay, take that, throw it on the top, get it out of the way. This needs to be shorter, a lot shorter. Here's a great spot to cut it, way back here. One more thing that you're looking for when selecting places to cut is you want your secondary branch to be a size that's comparable to what you're cutting. You don't want to cut a big, fat, wide primary branch with a stubbly little things cutting out of it. You don't want to cut it right there. That won't be a strong new branch. You want a solid branch that you're cutting it back to. Each cut you make should be a correct one. Even if I'm just taking it back a little bit to see where I should actually go back to, I want that cut to be correct in case there is no other place that I can cut it back to, or in case I miss it and don't find it again or something. At least the cuts are correct so the plant can continue to be healthy as it went on. This branch is where I cut. This is a good sizable comparison to this one. You want the branch you cut at to be at least a quarter, at the very least a quarter of the size of what you're cutting. It's better to have it be about 1/3 of the size that you're cutting. But this particular branch is growing straight out, and I don't want that. So I'm trying to find a place to go back to. This is another lateral branch, but it's quite a bit smaller than this one. So that would not be a good place to cut. So I'm going to keep going, and I might end up taking it all the way back to the base. I expected that on this plant, to be honest. I expect to take quite a few of these back to the very, very base. This is a lateral branch for this one, which is where I would cut this back to, but this is going straight out, not the direction I want it to grow. Same thing here. So I could head each of these back, but honestly my goal for this shrub is to get it much more narrow. So I'm actually going to whack all of these. And then I'm going to use my saw to cut that all the way back. Before I do that though, I'm going to rake all this out so that I can get me back there without tearing up my legs. There's something else that's really cool about Oregon Grape. The wood inside is yellow, and it smells a lot like carrots. It actually has a lot of the same is it protein? I don't know, whatever. That goes, sorry, no longer thinking straight. So the way these work, this hooks around the branch, this cuts the branch. I still have the cutting blade on the side that I want to keep. But the downside with these is in order for this gear to work, you have to have room for it to, for this handle to go way out. So what I do often if I'm trying to cut a branch that's probably bigger than I should have any business cutting with loppers is I'll cut as much as I can and then take it out and turn it and cut it the other direction as much as I can. And the same thing back and forth a few times until eventually it does cut all the way through. I have much more leverage with this tool than I do with the regular loppers. Just like that. Okay, so we're in the home stretch now. This is the back of the shrub, and there's still a few things over here that are a little bit long, so I'll trim those back, but they're not blocking anything. Like, I can get the lawnmower back here now. I can get between my little herb garden there, soon to be one day herb garden, and back here without hitting myself on pokey branches. Those are a little tall in that they make the shrub look lopsided. So if I stand back here, it's very much taller on this side than it is that side. So I might take those down just a little bit just to make it more uniform. And then this side looks a lot more cut than the other, but you know what? That's okay. The point of this was to bring it down so I could get around it with the lawnmower. The purpose of this was not really to make it pretty, but if I did want to make it pretty, I would make it more round, the whole thing, so that it was a uniform shape all the way around. And I can still go ahead and do that, but like I said, I just don't care about it that much. And I do kind of want the berries for the medicinal and food purposes. So there we go. A couple more things but to finish up. But in the meantime, make sure to hit the like button if you learned something new and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. Ring the bell if you want notifications of those videos. And I will see you in the garden.